Hello there.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Are you out in California or are you in?
No, I'm in Paris right now.
Okay, that's a better time change. I was thinking maybe it would be, crack of dawn for
Oh,
you.
right. No, it's great. It's we're getting to what, happy hour soon, right?
Happy hour, a little Bach, a little Beethoven, and a little happy hour. Seems like those things would go together with
Yes.
the pandemic that's been going on. Are things loosening up in France? Are they opening up?
Yes, things
Yeah.
are definitely getting better. The curfew has been moved back to 9 p.m. We had a 7 p.m. curfew for a while. It was maybe even earlier than that at one point, but it's no, I think maybe 7 was the earliest. But everything was closed for so long, and now concerts have started up again. Restaurants are open outdoors, and I think next week they'll move back the time to 11 p.m. for the curfew, and then restaurants will open up on the interior.
Yeah,
We're getting there. We're a little bit behind you guys.
yeah, but there's still light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
I'm talking with the wonderful pianist Andrew von Oeyen. It is just a real thrill for me to talk with you about this new album. Another Bach and Beethoven album comes along and you think, oh, okay, more Bach, more Beethoven. But first of all, it's you. Fantastic performances. I'm especially struck by the idiomatic way you approach not only the Beethoven, but especially the Bach. And that's a great thing. I love it. It's really interesting, beautiful to listen to. But also the story behind this compelling case that you've made for kind of getting back to the basics, getting back to our roots in the wake of the lockdown, which is when you recorded this during lockdown. So I wonder if you can talk about the genesis and why these two composers, Bach and Beethoven.
Absolutely. So this is really the result of our times and of lockdown and of COVID. And if I were to say, it's been a horrible year for all of us in the performing arts, but this was a kind of silver lining. And by that, I mean, had this not happened, had we not been locked down, had all the concerts not been canceled, I probably would not have discovered the music of Bach in this intimate way. And meaning I've lived with Bach my whole life, but I have not performed his music professionally. I have always respected it, but I never felt a sort of a close personal connection to it until this year. And when the lockdown happened, the only music that appealed to me was the music of Bach. And it's very curious. There was nothing else I wanted to play. I didn't want to play Chopin. I didn't want to play Debussy. I didn't want to play Rachmaninoff. And first of all of these big concertos and stuff were not even going to happen. So concerto repertoire was out. But I didn't want to play any music that seemed to kind of elicit a strong audience response and roars of applause. I didn't want to play music that came from a very personal point of view, or in any way sentimental, or of anything like. I was not really just in the mood to play anything too poetic or idealistic. In the sense, or anything sort of, I didn't want to deal with fantasy either. And all this music, Ravel and Debussy and Schumann, all this stuff, I generally love, but it just didn't speak to me at this time. Bach did. And because, I think it's precisely because I didn't have any concerts that had to happen, in the coming weeks or months, because pretty much everything canceled. I felt like I had just sort of free range to explore this repertoire without any kind of deadline and just see where it took me. And so the time that I had during lockdown, in a way, opened the door to discovering this.
Yeah. But was it a therapy for you then? Not only recording, but just playing this music
Totally,
of
it
Bach?
was.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was mysterious. It was like, I mean, why? And I know I wasn't the only artist who felt this way. I mean, there was a number of us who really went to Bach. You know, a lot of string players did too, because of course they were on their own, and they could just play sort of, you know, unaccompanied suites. But it was therapeutic. There's something about the music that is cleansing. There's something about the music, you know, and I wrote about this in the notes, like it's very rational. And as we were living in this very chaotic time, this kind of lucidity in his writing, the fact that it basically, his music provided, in my mind, the clearest sense of order in this chaotic world. And so, yes, in that sense, it definitely was therapeutic. I didn't want to immerse myself in this kind of like, in anything that seemed like that it came from this sort of like neurotic place of the composer, or hysterical place, or dark, depressive place. No, there was just something, and you know, the thing about Bach is that there is something mysterious about it, but it is this kind of spiritual music. I mean, absolutely he was one of the most spiritual of all composers, and that, I think that kind of gave me a certain hope through this process.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Beethoven. I mean, you had intended to do a lot of Beethoven for his anniversary year, and this recording, as I understand it, the very kernel of it began with an intent to salute Beethoven during his 250th.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I had planned to record 3 sonatas. And because I was playing a lot of Beethoven in the 2020 year, at least concerts that were scheduled to take place, and then they ended up canceling. So I had Beethoven in my fingers. But then what happened is everything canceled, and somehow by that point, by the time I made the recording, we were getting to the end of the year, and it just didn't feel so relevant anymore. Bach is, as I said, the composer that just sort of came into my life more than any other. But then when I decided to make the recording, I kind of came back to where I decided that I certainly wanted to record some Bach. I came back to Beethoven, and it also seemed to make a lot of sense during this time because of its kind of its gravitas, its universality. Aesthetically, there's some commonalities between Bach and Beethoven, not just musical commonalities, but aesthetic ones, and the fact that both composers are writing in a style that seems to express the collective even more than the personal, and which of course definitely appealed during a time of a pandemic when we were all in this together.
Well, I can sense as a listener that relationship between Bach and Beethoven, and I kind of get the sense that Beethoven is unleashing some of the reserved energy that you're building up in the Bach Overture. You know, when you get to it, the way the program is put together. Can you talk about the selection of these pieces in particular and how you arrange them?
That's a good observation you make, because I have that feeling while I'm playing it, that yes, now you come to the Passionata and you can totally unleash. There's no politeness anymore. You know, there's a certain politeness of the beautiful overture in the French style, because that is the first piece on the program of Bach, and it is one of his longest works. In fact, I think it's his second longest work after the Goldberg variations for keyboard. But when I say there's a politeness in the music, what's always fascinated me about the piece is it has this kind of Versailles aura, in that Bach is writing in this style of the composers of the court of Louis XIV. And to my knowledge, he never visited Versailles. He studied the scores of Couperin, Rameau, and all that, Lully, but he seemed to he wrote so well in this style that you would have think he'd lived there and composed in that court. And that's it's kind of amazing how he channels that kind of spirit. This is a very unusual piece of Bach in the sense that I don't consider it, maybe it's one of his least German of pieces, for the reasons I just mentioned. It's not meant to sound German. Of course, the fugue, the long extensive fugue in the overture, this is very, typical Bach, but the rest of the piece, these dance movements are very, very charming, very elegant, beautifully written, and full of course, astounding counterpoint. But you don't even have to appreciate it on that level. The music is just really, really very pleasing to the ears in many ways. Yeah. So anyway, I open the program with that. Then I do the Beethoven Sonata number 13 in E flat major, the Quasi una Fantasia, opus 27, number 1. And I've always loved this piece because in just 16 minutes, Beethoven is able to take the listener on a story, tell a story, and you have the feeling at the end of hearing the sonata that you've sat through a big 4-movement sonata of 30 minutes or so, but it's only 16 minutes. It's a very compact work. And I'm also fascinated because it sort of has one foot in the classical mold and the other in the romantic mold. And of course, it's kind of, precursor to the Appassionata, which follows it on the album, and of course, which everybody knows so well. And of course, one of the questions is, should I record the Appassionata? It's been done so many times, but there's 2 reasons I did it. The first is, actually I could say 3 reasons. I do feel it works well on this program, but then I also think that, as you mentioned earlier, there's kind of this unleashing of energy, of passion, of just letting go that I think we all felt in confinement, just sort of, trapped in some ways, and living in this sort of smaller, shorter bandwidth. And I felt that really it kind of offered that, in a kind of therapeutic way, a chance to sort of just let go and really there's a wildness to the last movement. There's a fury. There is and so I felt that in our times that for me at least, that I needed to vent. But then the other reason is that there are a number of reasons why we make recordings, and I think that one of the most important reasons we make recordings is because it's the right time for the artist to be recording a particular piece. And so we make recordings, artists make recordings for themselves. It's also for the public, but it's important for our own artistic process. And you learn so much through making recordings. So the producer on the album, wonderful producer, Michael Fine, when we were talking about repertoire, and I shared with him my concerns about recording Appassionata, and he said, it's so important that an artist, for his or her own process, record what they feel they have something to say about, and just, follow their instincts on that without thinking about, has it been recorded? What will critics say? All of that. And then anyway, so after the Appassionata, I conclude the program with 2 beautiful transcriptions of Wilhelm Kempff. The first one is the Siciliano from the Flute Sonata number 2. And the second is the Largo from the Harpsichord Concerto number 5. And these are, I would say, they're just gorgeous pieces. For me, the Largo is one of the most beautiful melodies Bach ever wrote. But of course, he wrote, you know, many beautiful melodies. But for me, it's always magical. And I'm a big believer in transcription in Bach. I think that in his music lends itself well to transcription. And sometimes even the transcription or hearing his music on a different instrument can even shed new light on the piece itself. Like if you hear a prelude played on the piano, well, it might be played on the harpsichord or on the guitar, or it may have been transcribed for orchestra, and you hear the voices in a different way. And I just think because Bach was not about, color was not at the top of the list of importance for him. It was structure, it was counterpoint, it was just the expression of the music itself. It's not like, you know, playing a Debussy prelude, which is so specifically written for the piano, and transcribing that for orchestra. I think it's often a mistake. Yeah. Because that Debussy was written so precisely for the sound world and the emotion that only can be sort of conjured by a piano. But in the case of Bach, it's different. The aesthetics are different, and I'm certain that Bach himself would have approved hearing his pieces played on many different instruments.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful to hear you talk about this music and to listen to your performance of it. Like you say, I mean, the Appassionata, you certainly had something to say about it, and it's very arresting right out of the gate. There's something in both the Bach and Beethoven that captures the ear, even of the most, you know, jaded Bach and Beethoven listener. Definitely worth listening.
Well, I can tell you, I was not, you know, I would say, I don't know if I would have done this recording in any other time, because I certainly was not feeling jaded. I was just happy to be making music. When I made this recording, you know, in the absence of concerts, this project became so much more important to me. Right. And you know, and I love this repertoire. I play a lot of Beethoven usually, and now I will be performing more Bach. But you know, a year from now, 5 years from now, would I have made this recording? Probably not. It was just the right time to be playing this music.
Yeah, and it brought this music into immediate relevancy, I think, for the listening audience. And you mentioned it briefly, but I'm really looking forward to more Bach from you. I hope that's in your future.
I think it is. It's actually, I'm playing at a festival in a few weeks in Italy, and I will be playing quite a bit of Bach on it. So.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, the album is from Warner Classics. It is music of Bach and Beethoven. Pianist Andrew von Oeyen, who has been talking with me today you're in Paris, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in Paris. Beautiful city. I've been there maybe once or twice, but I'll just live vicariously through the background I see there.
Well, it's coming back to life here, and it is a beautiful city, and it's nice to see that live performances are happening here again.
It's fantastic. Well, we look forward to hearing more from you, and thank you so much for spending some time talking to our listening audience here on FM 91.
Thank you.